Welcome back. That was Julie Perlin, who is very knowledgeable about New York City and Murray Hill in general. You're listening to Rob Taub on Stribling's New York here on Saturday night. We're usually on Sunday evenings at 11, so if you're listening right now, don't get confused. Tune in next week or listen to our podcasts at any time, but we are normally broadcasting at 11 p.m. Sunday evenings, Eastern Standard Time on WOR AM Radio 710 on your digital dial. I have somebody on the phone from the Angela Vineyard, the Angela Estate, Jessica Endsworth. Welcome, Jessica. How are you?
I'm great, Rob. How are you?
Good. I have to tell everybody a story briefly. I know I talk too much, but I'm going to try and make this succinct. A number of months ago, there was a Stribling property for sale, and we got a call from a woman named Angela Beck. And, of course, since nothing is private anymore with Google, I Googled Angela, and I saw that she had a vineyard in Oregon called the Angela Estate, the Angela Vineyard, and it's named after her. And I met her that day, and a few hours later, I was at a restaurant on the Upper East Side with a friend of mine, Mr. Jimmy Jama, who is probably the premier builder in the tri-state area and a wine connoisseur. And he said, I'm going to order a fantastic bottle of wine called Angela. So it's just a bit of serendipity and not less than 6 degrees of separation. And it was an unbelievable wine. So I wanted to learn more about it and went to the website, and I met Jessica, and she's here to tell us about the vineyard.
Yeah, it happens a lot in the wine business, doesn't it? That little crossover.
It's amazing, and also, so you're not in Napa, you're not in France, you're in Oregon.
We're in Oregon. We're actually we're right in the seat of the Willamette Valley in Oregon, and we have 2 single vineyards that we're based out of Yamhill Carlton AVA, which is kind of the northwest of the top northwest of the Willamette Valley, and it's this lovely little tucked in little hamlet that we're part of that really produces some extraordinary Pinot.
What's been the huge reason for growth in Oregon? Is it just because there's a limited amount of land and Napa's become so crazy in terms of if you want to buy a vineyard, it's expensive, so that there are just other places in the United States like Oregon that have started to develop?
I think that there's a few reasons. I think the land is more expensive is less expensive than Napa, so it makes it more of affordable if you're going to get into the business. I think there's a lot of focus now on Pinot Noir. I think you have 2 camps of Burgundy drinkers and Bordeaux or Cabernet drinkers, and the Burgundy drinkers are really starting to grow. And, and Pinot Noir overall is really gaining a lot of momentum. And in our little section that we're in, we produce kind of in the middle of the road, where it's great minerality, a good fresh fruit component. They're complex, and they're being made with really incredible winemakers that have an amazing amount of skill. So, and Pinot's not an easy grape to grow. It's really painful sometimes to grow. It's very fickle. But where we are, we have this really great capacity to produce some of the world's best Pinot Noir.
What does it take to produce that? Was there something different about your climate, your soil, the weather?
Yeah, Oregon overall is, the Willamette Valley especially is pretty temperate. We're probably, this area of the country is old growth rainforest essentially, so we get a lot of water here. And really the only red grape that'll grow in the Willamette is Pinot Noir. You can grow almost anything in the Columbia Gorge and down into the Rogue and Applegate south areas. North and south you can really grow a lot more variety, but the only red grape we grow in the Willamette is Pinot Noir. A little bit of Gamay, a little bit of, a couple of the little varieties that people are testing out, a lot of whites. But Pinot Noir really produces really well here. And soil-wise, we really have younger soils than where you have the rest of the country. We're in this area that really moves a lot of soil around through subduction that's happening on the coast, which is tectonic shift, and then we have volcanic activity from the Cascade Range. So we really have a lot of soil that's moving a lot and really produces some exceptional flavor profiles.
How do we get to your vineyard?
It's wonderful. The vineyard is private, but we.
Do you have tours?
We do, yeah,
Okay.
we do a lot of tours, and it's really the sweet spot is really from May to about September, October is kind of the sweet spot for weather out here. But it's easily, it's just an hour from Portland. So Portland's really become such a mecca for dining and food and all of these incredible things that are happening in Portland with our chefs and food scene that it's really becoming a big tourist area to come in and dine. And then, the Willamette Valley's only an hour away.
Is it becoming similar to people going to San Francisco and then taking a tour of the wine country?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's one of those few areas, and San Francisco's like this too, that, our food sources are within an hour of our restaurants. And so we really have a lot of kind of farm to table sort of philosophy that's happening, and it's happening with our food and our beer and our wines. And, even with liquor, there's a lot of distilleries out here as well.
Well, for the unsophisticates like myself, can you explain the difference between a Pinot and a Cab?
Absolutely. They're two completely different grapes. And one of the things about Pinot that makes it exceptional but also really challenging is that, Pinot in French means pine cone. So it has a really kind of a tight fruit set. It's a very tight little cluster, versus Cabernet is a very kind of a good sized, kind of a hulky cluster. And the difference is that Pinot has a very thin skin, so it's susceptible to sunburn, and it's susceptible to too much water. It'll split, and when the water gets in there, it can't get out. So we're more conditioned here with the pressures of disease pressure or mold and mildew, versus with Cabernet, it grows in a much more warm climate. It's a little tougher skinned. It's a little more of a hardy grape, and so it can take those warmer heat units and climate exchange in a little better way. You can grow Cabernet a lot of places, and it'll ripen. Whereas here in the Willamette Valley, Pinot Noir really kind of struggles to ripen, and we're trying to make sure that the phenolics, like all of the great aromas and flavors, get developed before harvest time. And then the cluster is smaller, so we get lots smaller yields here, which automatically puts us in a luxury category coming out of the gate, because we only harvest about 2.5 tons per acre is pretty average for us, whereas California, you can do about 4 or 5 tons of Pinot down there just because they have warmer climate.
Now, I love the new expressions today, since I'm so old school. You're not supposed to say, we can't say things like, so what does your wine cost? It's like, what is the price point? How does somebody order your wine if we're all the way over here on the East Coast? Can we buy it directly from the vineyard? And what would the price point be?
We can actually buy directly from the winery, and our cost, we run between about $48 a bottle and then up to about $60. But everything we produce is single vineyard Pinot Noir from estates. So we own the vineyard sites, and then we produce these wonderful wines. And Ken Wright's our winemaker, which is also a really incredible advantage that we have. We have a famous winemaker that really does a lot of caretaking in his team of our vineyard sites. So
What's
that's
Ken's background?
from us. Ken originally worked in California and at Talbot Winery, and then did a few stints, and then ended up coming up to the Willamette Valley, I think in the early 90s, and started a winery called Panther Creek, and that was his first foray into Pinot Noir here, and really did a lot of shaking up of how he wanted to produce wines here, with vineyard contracts and lessening yields and doing more sorting tables and things like that. He was pretty innovative. And then had to sell Panther Creek to liquidate a partnership that had gone kind of sideways. And then he started Ken Wright Cellars, and he's been doing Ken Wright Cellars ever since. But he, at one point, had been a winemaker for Demi and Serene and a couple of other really high-profile wineries that he was.
You have me chuckling here, because I've drunk Talbot wines for many, many times, and
yes.
I thought it was a French wine. I think I was calling it Talbot, but it was still good, and it's from California. I learned so much on this show.
That's wonderful. Yeah, we also so you can buy the wines through our website, but we also have a
What's your website?
It's www.angelaestate.com, and we also have a really nice presence in New York City at a few really wonderful wine shops.
Which wine shops? Because I'm going to go to one of them today.
Oh, great! We're at Bedford Wine Merchants, Comac Liquors. We're at Grace Wine and Spirits on 10th. They've been a good supporter of us. Manor House has been a longtime supporter. Windsor Wine Shop, and we're actually at a fair amount of Whole Foods as well, which is pretty exciting. So,
Great.
We're getting some movement out there.
I'm at Whole Foods every weekend in Columbus Circle.
That's one that actually supports us. So we should have wines at Columbus Circle.
Well, okay, I'm going to tell all our listeners tomorrow morning, go to Columbus Circle Whole Foods and tell them that Jessica and I sent you. And,
that's great.
I don't think you'll get a discount or anything, but we'll hear about it and do something special for you. Jessica, thanks so much for joining us. Say hello to Angela Beck for me, and I hope to make it out to the vineyard sometime.
Come be our guest anytime.
All righty. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much. Have a great day.